fans were really, really interested, clearly, Marcus, in what you thought about the season, how you think Michigan would stack up with some of the other teams in the Big Ten. I don't know if you started to look across the Big Ten yet in preparation for the season, but I mean, after Ohio State, after you look at Ohio State and Michigan State, of course, the two teams that are going to be tabbed by everyone as the favorites, Ohio State being the preseason favorite, obviously. How do you see things? How do you see Michigan kind of shaping up, kind of stacking up to the rest of the conference?
Well, when you look at the Big Ten East in particular, I think Michigan can sit right at number 3. I think they have a chance to finish third or maybe even fourth. It just all depends on the game out at Happy Valley the week before they, when Michigan plays Penn State, the week before they play Ohio State. So that's going to be a tough game on the road. And you have to realize, man, Michigan's schedule is not easy. When you talk about going out to Minnesota, going out to Maryland. So, Indiana's not going to be any pushover. So Michigan can be, I think, right there at the best I think Michigan could probably do is third in the East this year. I mean, that's just preseason talk, and once you start playing the games and then you start to really watch tape, then that's when, I'll be able to see, like, all right, I've watched them play now. Because right now this is just guessing because we just never know. Honestly, just never know. I don't think people really predicted Minnesota to be as good as they were last year in the conference. So I think Michigan can finish third in the East at best. And that might even be with a win over Michigan State or Ohio State. Michigan just might beat one of those teams, but I still see them possibly losing to somebody that they probably shouldn't lose to.
So Marcus, look, much of the uncertainty, it's a new regime, new offense, obviously, new everything, but they return a lot of experience on defense. So, it's pure guesswork on offense as far as how the quarterback is going to do, how the line is going to shape up, who the running back is going to be. Not as much guesswork defensively. So knowing the personnel like you do, Marcus, having an idea after spending some time with DJ Durkin about what the plan is, give me your take on how good you think this defense can be, because I think that's what a lot of people are basing a great deal of their optimism on this year, is the expectation that the defense will be pretty good.
Well, first and foremost, the defense was I think decent last year. I'm not going to say good. I know they finished up top 10 maybe in total yards. But I don't really care about total yards. I care about how many points you give up, how many turnovers you create. And they only created 5 interceptions last year. So, first and foremost, I think DJ Durkin is going to put a lot of speed on the field. I think the defense is going to be more in your face, blitzing, and then trying to play some man-to-man, which always gives you an opportunity to be pretty good. Now, it's feast or famine. But when you look at their personnel, I think the secondary should be pretty solid. Should be, if everybody plays as a unit and steps up and makes the plays that they're supposed to make, and if they get the right guys on the field. If Delano Hill can kind of get into the mix, Jordan Lewis, those guys. You got Peppers. Wilson's going to finally have to do something. You got a transfer coming in, so we still got to wait and see. Linebackers, to me, I think. That's probably the elder statesman position with the seniors at linebacker, but I just don't see the production. I think linebacker is the position that Michigan is hurting the most on defense right now at all 3 of them. Mike, Sam, and Will. I don't care who you put in there, from Ross to Bowden to all of Morgan, whoever you put in there. I'm not sold. That defensive line, though, that's going to be the key. Because when you watch Ohio State play last year, they won the national championship by running the football and playing defense, even though the quarterback got all the credit. Their defensive front 4 just lined up and whooped people. And they got after Mariota, and they got after Alabama and their quarterback and everybody else. So if Michigan's defensive line can win the line of scrimmage, then that can make everybody else's life a lot easier. But that defense, I think, can finish up at the top of the conference. But they're going to have to create some turnovers for this new offense and get them the ball as many times as possible. And on the flip side, that offense is going to have to run the football and protect that defense and keep them off the field. That's just the way it has to go if Michigan is going to do anything close to what people are hoping.
We're talking to Marcus Ray this morning here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTKA.com. I want to seize on your linebacker commentary for a minute before I get your take on Blake Countess's departure and how you think that will impact this team. But linebacker-wise, this isn't the first time you talked about the need for that position in particular to improve. You mentioned, when you look at it, no matter who they throw out there, having some question about what they do. But do you see maybe some potential in the wings? I mean, what about the competition at the position? Do you think that there are some guys that maybe we haven't seen a lot from before that could maybe rise up and help things out, or is it just going to be? Are they just going to rely on some of the guys that have played a lot to step up?
Well, it looks like they're going to rely on the guys that have been out there with the experience and leadership, Joe Bowden, Morgan, and then, Royce Jenkins Stone will finally get a chance to play. I think that's because of how they changed the scheme. James Ross he can play inside or outside. I know he's been taking a lot of reps. See, linebacker is a position where you're a part of the run and the pass. So you're a part of the front seven and the back seven, mathematically. And I think that's a position on defense that has not been very solid and steady. Jake Ryan, moved from outside to inside last year, and then James Ross went from inside to outside. And everybody's reshuffling, and except for really like Joe Bowden, then Morgan was out. When you can miss an entire season and then come back as a starter, that doesn't say much about the guys you have there. I like McCray. I think he has a chance to be pretty good. What's the young man's name? It was 42. I can't think of his name right off the top.
You talking about Gedeon?
I like Ben. Yeah, Ben Gedeon. I think he has a chance to be pretty good. But when you go back and watch Ohio State 2013 and Carlos Hyde, the way he was just pounding Michigan's linebackers because they don't play downhill. Last year's Ohio State game, Joe Bowden clearly missed a 4th and 1, unblocked. Ezekiel Elliott looks like a hero, but if you really watch football, there was a breakdown in execution. I'm not blaming anything on anybody. I watch every snap and I watch a lot of film, so I know how to critique and break down who messed up. If that position rises to the occasion, and I think all of those guys are about the same. I don't think anyone's super great. I don't think anyone was a waste of scholarship. I'm not going that far. But collectively, they just haven't been up to par. And if they are, then that defense can be special. But those guys are going to have to be able to check running backs one-on-one, run sideline to sideline. Michigan State lined up and beat the brakes off of Michigan up front and at linebacker to the point where they pushed them down so much, I started to feel sorry for the young fellas. Like, come on, D'Antonio, man, just come on, man, please. That's how I felt standing on the sideline. So you got to understand, you need some tough guys that can run and hit and be smart, and they can't just be practice All-Americans. I can't get excited about guys that haven't done much yet, or guys that have been out there for a long time and just have never gotten better. I think DJ Dirk is going to give them an injection of enthusiasm. I think they're going to play a little smarter and get downhill, but DJ Durkins can't play for him, and he doesn't have the same guys that he had in Florida, that, the linebacker and the DN that were just top 10 guys. That's not what Michigan has on defense. But he can coach them up to make them better. Now, unless there's a young guy coming in that I haven't seen, Sam, but that's how I feel about that position.
Gotcha. All right, so Blake Countess is transferring to Auburn. He announced his decision. I'm not sure quite sure how much you and I have delved into it here on the show, but now that his departure is his destination is set, His departure is final. I'm curious how you think Michigan will fare in his absence, what role you think he would have played on the defense, how much and where will he be missed?
In my opinion, I think that hurts Michigan's defense tremendously. From a leadership standpoint, from a guy who's been out there, played a lot of football, locker room guy, program guy. When your fifth-year seniors start leaving, you know, when they just feel like, hey, when those who don't stay feel like they can still go be a champion, that's not good for Michigan. It's not good for young players, you know, but, hey, it is what it is. Blake's played a lot of football, man. This guy had 6 interceptions a couple of seasons ago. A lot of tips and overthrows. Do I think he was a great man-to-man corner? No. Do I think that his knee injury slowed him down? Significantly, yes. But he still was a pretty decent football player. And in this league, in the Big Ten right now, every school needs at least 4 corners. Now, every team doesn't have that. That's why they can't match up with anybody that lines up with 4 wide receivers and then spread you out. And you got linebackers and safeties moving around. And, you know, you're lucky to have 2.5 corners. If you got 2 starters and a nickel, you're lucky as a defense. But when you start to lose a guy that could absolutely help you win, now I think you become so thin in the secondary with inexperience. Now you got to play a transfer that's coming from Stanford, whom people can't deem him as the savior. He's pretty good, but you need all of them. I mean, Lions gave up a couple of touchdowns in the Rose Bowl against Michigan State. So anybody can get beat. Blake Countess got beat against Rutgers. But what I'm saying, you need all of those guys. And the more leadership and bodies you have and competition, that makes you better. So you got, you know, Lewis, Lions, and then from there, you don't know who's next. But Countess could have been that 3rd guy, even if he wasn't a starter, or even if they could have rotated. But you need 4. Rion Dawson's not ready. Channing Stribling's not ready to step in there for 75 plays and line up and check the Devin Smiths of the world, to line up against Kenny Bells and all those guys and the Lippids and the guys that left and came back. I'm talking about wide receivers in this conference. You got to understand 3, 4 corners that can tackle and cover. When you lose that, you know, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Blake Countess can help Auburn's secondary. Understand, Blake's not that fast, but in the SEC is all about speed down there, and they chose him. They saw something. You just don't take certain transfers like that to a conference like that, a school that's played in the national championship twice in the last 5 years. You know, so they see something there. I think that hurts Michigan. I don't think that helps Michigan one bit. I don't think it's to the point he was so good that they just won't be anything. No, they have more guys. I think from a depth standpoint, schematically, experience, leadership, and then it just doesn't look like anybody that gets older, you're expendable too. I don't care how long you've been here. I don't care how many games you started. See, that stuff I guess doesn't matter anymore. But understand, Peppers better step up because now he has to be a hybrid guy. Peppers, like Michigan's dependent on him to play that nickelback / safety / emergency corner, the utility man. That puts a lot of pressure on Jabril when everybody can just have their own niche, play as a unit. But to answer your question, I don't think Blake Countess leaving does Michigan any favors. I think with Lions coming in and Blake Countess leaving, that's 6 in one hand, a half a dozen in the other. You know, so I told Blake, hey, when you find yourself in a pickle, relish it, and that's what he's doing.
What about a guy who I thought really kind of showed up in the spring, gave anyone who saw a little bit of practice, a little bit of optimism about what he could bring to the table, both size-wise and ability to be physical, and that's Brandon Watson. He seemed like a guy that might be ready to step into some playing time this year.
That's a great observation, Sam, and to Brandon's credit, he switched from safety to corner, and I think he did it without it setting him back, without it being a struggle. He's inexperienced and young. That doesn't mean you can't play. I think he can do it, but there's a sense of urgency at Michigan. It's almost like, is Michigan going to pick and choose which positions are young and inexperienced? Or, like, for example, if you bring in a fifth-year quarterback from Iowa and start him over your other quarterbacks on the roster whom are young and inexperienced, are you saying I want to win now and go with leadership and an experienced guy at quarterback but an inexperienced guy at corner? See, that's not an even trade-off. I know Lyons is coming in, so it's like the same thing at quarterback. But if one of those guys were to go down, you're back in that predicament anyways with playing a younger player. So I think Watson is going to be good. It's hard to really gauge a guy in the spring. I think we all saw it with Lewis last year, and I think we guessed right. We all kind of said, wow, that guy. Well, Brandon Watson didn't stick out like that, but he did show enough promise to say, hey, this guy, well, yeah, okay, 28 can play. 28's going to be pretty good. But he hasn't been out there yet. He hasn't faced any live bullets. And it's a lot different from lining up against the same receivers that you've been watching for 2 years now than going up against somebody who wants to rip your mouth out or he wants to rip your mouth off your face. It's a little different. But I think he can help, but I don't think he has experience. He doesn't have the interceptions. He hasn't locked up against some of these same guys, that Blake has locked up against. But as a whole, what's going to help the secondary is they're well coached. They are, to me, they're leaps and bounds at this point of the spring and summer better. They're so much more improved than they were a year ago. That may compensate for a lot of everything I just said. Is the fact that they just might be well coached enough to where it doesn't matter who's in there, because they got two pretty good secondary coaches. I will tip my hat that way.
All right.